The Jets almost take down the defending Super Bowl champs as Zach Wilson plays what I would argue was his best game as a pro. Refs had something to say about the outcome, though. I'm Glenn Norton with JetNation.com. Be sure to log in to JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Heartbreaking loss. No getting around it. Jets lose to the Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champs, 23-20. This, despite trailing 17-0 in the first quarter, they battled back. And I'll tell you what, all things considered, with what was on the line, with the opponent they were playing, with the bright lights, the prime time, I would argue Zach Wilson's best game as a pro. And statistically, there might be some better games, but really, this was a game he had to have. And listen, I tweeted out earlier in the week and said that I would love to think Zach would come out slinging it because his job was on the line. But I didn't think he would, because if we're being honest, Zach has had a lot of games where his job was on the line. Like, he's been bad for a while now, and he just dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk, and that's all he would do. And I get a lot of it was the offensive play calling, but there were opportunities over the past, over his past 8, 9 NFL starts where he had opportunities to make plays down the field and didn't. And I kind of thought, I'm not going to keep saying he's going to come out slinging it because every time I say it, he doesn't. So earlier in the week, I said he's not going to come out slinging it. And he did a little bit. He threw the ball down the field, but Nathaniel Hackett, and listen, Zach Wilson acknowledged it after the game. Nathaniel Hackett, I don't know why coaches make this stuff so much more difficult than it has to be, but he finally mixed in some motion, mixed in some rollouts. We saw Jeremy Ruckert as a blocker in the run game. We saw tons of play action, all the things. I've said it a few times this week alone. You drafted a guy because of the things he does well or things he did well in college, and then essentially said, we don't want you to do those things anymore. All those things that made you one of the best quarterbacks in the country. All the motion, all the movement, all the throwing on the run, all the downfield stuff. We're not going to have... I get that he had a really rough time, so they dialed it back a little bit, or they dialed it back a lot, but it was too much. Like, find a balance. Mix stuff up a little bit, which is exactly what Zach Wilson said after the game. He said, great job by Nathaniel Hackett mixing things up. And that's exactly what Zach finishes the day 28 out of 39, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, rushed for a 2-point conversion. But a late fumble killed him, right? He fumbled the snap. Kansas City gets the ball. Then the Jets allowed the Chiefs to convert on a 3rd and 22. But let's be honest, and I hate pointing at the refs for losses because there's a million other plays where things, you have a chance to make a play. But when you're talking about a play of that magnitude, that late in the game, that pivotal 3rd and 22, a blatant hold on Jermaine Johnson. It even looked like at one point he started waving to the official to show him, I'm being held. And he starts pushing the lineman's face with his hand, like, get off of me. Ref doesn't call it. And Mahomes picks up the first down on 3rd and 22, whatever it was. So terrible missed call there. And then, of course, later in the drive, we get an interception from Michael Carter that's overturned for a Sauce Gardner holding call, which is one of those things. If you read the rule book on pass interference, on holding, it's been a while since I've looked at the holding one. I know when I looked at the PI. Basically, if you don't significantly take a guy off his route, like prevent him from doing what he's going to be able to do, they don't call it. Because that's what the rule is there for. If you're grabbing dudes and preventing them from doing what they're trying to do, that's what the flag is for. Like, you're interfering with this person or you're holding this person and he can no longer operate in the way he's trying to. That didn't happen in this case. The receiver wasn't slowed, he wasn't pulled on, there was no resistance of him trying to break away. It was a hand on a shoulder, may have gotten some jersey. Really a ticky-tack call. Far worse stuff that was let go. Again, the hold on Jermaine Johnson, which was almost, a comedy skit, for God's sakes. The refs played a big role, but the Jets got to be better. In games like that, against a team like that, in a spot that big, Zach Wilson can't drop a shotgun snap. It was sort of just above his knees. It wasn't a, wildly erratic snap that he had no chance at. It was in his hands and he dropped it. So obviously an imperfect day for Zach Wilson. But listen, all in all, frustrating. I mean, a win there would have been huge for the Jets' playoff hopes. Absolutely huge. However, Jets fans should be encouraged. Zach Wilson was more decisive. And listen, I've taken heat. I've taken a lot of heat for putting out videos telling people Zach's getting better. Zach's showing improvement. He's doing some things better than he has. Oh, Glenn, you're an idiot. Shut up. You know what you're talking about. And people get mad. They get emotional. But the aspect of Zach's game we hadn't seen, and it was another reason why I was like, he's either broken mentally or the coaching staff has so little faith in him that they're not letting him operate quickly. And that's why I was like, just bench him then. If you don't have the faith to let him run the offense, and if he doesn't have the confidence in himself to throw the ball beyond the line of scrimmage, then why is he in there, right? Tonight was the night. He did those things. He took some deep shots. Granted, one that he connected on with Lazard was significantly underthrown. Lazard had to adjust and make the catch. They did run a flea flicker. It's unfortunate Zach Wilson got sacked because it did look like it didn't look like Lazard was breaking free, coming open on a deep ball. And if Zach hits him on that, it might have been 6. May not. The safety was deep, but it would have been a big play. But either way, the bottom line right now, and let's give the defense some credit. 17-0 early on. I really felt like they were flat. And I think, right or wrong, whether we like it or not, these guys are human beings. I think they kind of felt like once Kansas City got a touchdown, that was ball game. And it was, you didn't see, put it this way, once the Jets scored, got a safety, and then kicked a field goal and got back in it, you saw the defense come to life. Even when the Kansas City they had a long drive, believe it ended in a field goal. I forget how the drive ended. The Jets were hitting. Like every single play, you could hear, they were smacking guys. And it was like, okay, the defense has come to life now. They're awake. They're ready to play the way they can because now they don't feel like it's a wasted effort. And they gave up. Look, again, you're talking Super Bowl champions. The Jets gave up 6 points after the first quarter to the defending Super Bowl champs. Now, Kansas City could have had a touchdown on the final drive, but Pat Mahomes slid inside the 5-yard line just over the first down to run the clock out. So that would have been a touchdown. But either way, the defense shut Kansas City down after that first drive. And really, Chris Collinsworth, a guy who takes a lot of flack, give him a little bit of credit because early on when the Jets weren't moving the ball, he made a point about Zach. It was weird. I wasn't putting it in words, at least in my head. I'm watching it. I'm thinking they're not moving the ball, but I don't feel like Zach's been terrible. But it was frustrating because you're still seeing 3 and outs and things like that. And Collinsworth just says hey, the Jets keep, they're getting a 10-yard loss on a sack and flea flickers blown up. They're getting all these huge losses that are putting them in impossible situations. So Zach Wilson isn't playing poorly. He's just being put in terrible positions. So yeah, we're seeing 3 and outs and we're seeing the Jets punting a lot early on, but it wasn't as if Zach Wilson wasn't accurate. And he early on, I'm like, what do you get? 9 of his first 10, I think, whatever it was. So really, and we saw a couple of throws from Zach in this game. A couple in particular. One on he was under pressure, dropping back quickly, had defenders. They were there in an instant, and he's backpedaling, but he also jumps up at the same time and dumps off a screen. We talked in the past about how he couldn't hit a screen to save his life previously, and now we're seeing him hit them under pressure, leaping, jumping to get over the defender. Had another great play later on in the game where he scrambled, got away from 3 defenders, hustled toward the sideline, dumped it off to Michael Carter, who dropped it, unfortunately. But just, again, all things considered, the level of competition, the back against the wall, the Monday or the Sunday night football, all that stuff, the pressure of Simeon having been signed and ready to take over. There were a lot of people, myself included, who said, look, if he comes out this week and they have another 1 touchdown performance, Trevor Simeon's coming in. But all the pressure, Zach handled it well. The running game wasn't bad. I don't know why Dalvin Cook's still getting the football. 5 carries for 16 yards. Breece Hall had 6 for 56, almost broke a 90-yarder, but got caught. Ended up being a 42, 43-yard run. So they got a little something going on the ground. Alan Lazard led them with 61 yards. Garrett Wilson was the leading receiver in receptions with 9. Tyler Conklin had 4 for 58. Jeremy Ruckert had a 23-yard grab on a big play. He had a couple of targets, caught both, 2 for 26. So all in all, for the offense, one of their better performances. They sort of faded at the end. Again, Kansas City, once they got the ball and they got these penalty calls, they were just able to have a ridiculously long drive at the end of the game, and the Jets couldn't get the ball back. You saw Zach Wilson late in the game or after the game, sort of on a knee, and it was actually a good moment, I thought. Because you want to see that he's got the support of this locker room, and Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb were in his ear, clearly trying to encourage him and say, hey, you played well today. And they asked Zach Wilson after the game what they said, and he basically said, they told me they have my back and they've got me. So, listen, frustrating loss. However, if Zach Wilson can play anywhere near this level from this point on, the Jets can win some games. The expectation before with say, my thought process before was that if this is going to be a 1 touchdown per game offense, you're only going to win 5-6 games this year, if that. You're going to have some games where you're going to need the defense to score, and how many times can you rely on that? You can't. So, Zach Wilson, again, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, 28 out of 39. But just some quick, decisive throws, good decision-making. All in all, it's sort of look at the big picture thing. Frustrating as hell to lose to an opponent, that's at this level, defending Super Bowl champs. Like, what winning this game would have done for the locker room would be immeasurable. But you can still take away from it and say, look, it was a loss. However, we've now seen our quarterback do something that we haven't seen him do in a very long time, and actually move the ball and play with confidence and do a bunch of, and this opens things up as they move forward, like throw it down the field a little more, and some of these things that were sprinkled in today can become big parts of the offense moving forward, and maybe start actually scoring some points, or putting up more than 20. So it's an encouraging step forward. Listen, you can say moral victories, but as I like to say, sometimes people talk about moral victories, and they're what I call a building block. I mean, you have to get better. If you're struggling, the goal is to get better. And if you're getting better, it does you no good to ignore that. Like, you need to see for yourself that the work you're putting in is yielding some results. And that's what they got today. So, while a naysayer may say, don't tell me about they scored 20 points, I don't want to hear about moral victories. Listen, call it whatever the hell you want. To me, it's a building block, and it's evidence of improvement, which breeds confidence, and you want your team to have. You hear pro athletes say it in every sport. Doesn't matter if it's baseball, football, basketball, confidence. You've got to have We've seen Zach Wilson struggle mightily because he lacks confidence. But this performance today, the hope is that, yes, you lost in a heartbreaking manner, but you played in a way that you should be moving forward with some confidence. And if you can keep putting up 20 points a game, we've said before, right? If this team would just score 20, 23 points a game, they'd win a ton of football games. How many games did they lose last year where the offense, where 20 points would have gotten them the win? They would have been in the playoffs if they averaged 20 a game down the stretch last year. So if the defense keeps playing the way they did today, again, they weren't perfect, and they would have been the late touchdown to Mahomes, but they had 2 takeaways, or they had 2 interceptions. Could have had really had a third that was taken away. But they basically they basically took the ball away multiple times from the defending Super Bowl champions, and were 1 or 2 calls away from winning this football game. So, Hurts today, big picture. It's good news moving forward. Now, listen, if Zach Wilson comes out next week and throws for another 140 and no touchdowns or 1 touchdown, we're back to square one. But I don't see that happening. I think this is a big moment for him in his development, and hopefully moving forward, performances like this become the norm and not the exception. So, more from us this week. Plenty on this game and plenty on news that will break during the week. Myself and Chris Schubert will be live Thursday night discussing this game and and previewing next Sunday's game. But for now, that'll wrap this one up. Jets drop onto the Chiefs 23-20. Tough, bitter pill to swallow, but looks like perhaps some brighter days ahead.